In this video, I'm going to show you how to conduct a paired sample t-test in SPSS. And just as a brief review, this example data file is based on the Morizano et al. Study that hypothesized that goal setting can help people improve their academic performance. And so in this study, GPA was measured earlier on in the academic year, so that's called GPA pre, and GPA is measured on a continuous scale. And then GPA post is the academic performance of the students who underwent the goal-setting training program later in the academic year. And the hypothesis is that the average GPA is going to be larger post in comparison to pre. So to analyze these data, go into Analyze, Compare Means, Paired Sample t-test, and place the GPA pre in the variable 1 box and GPA post in the variable 2 box. I'll just point out briefly that in the options section there's really not much available except that the confidence interval, which is going to be calculated automatically, is associated with a 95% level, and that's going to correspond to the mean difference between GPA pre and post. Click Continue and click OK. Now you can see that GPA on average was 2.25 pre-goal setting training, and then it increased numerically to 2.91 post-training. And so there's a numerical increase from time 1 to time 2, which is suggestive that the goal-setting program may work. It may help people improve their academic performance. But we have to test this difference statistically. At this stage, it's only a numerical difference. We have the sample size of 45. This is a within subjects design. Keep that in mind. So the number of people is 45 across both levels. It's not a sample size of 90 for total. It's a total sample size of 45. And then we have the standard deviation for GPA at pre-training and the standard deviation for post-training. And it's 0.928 and 0.65. So the standard deviation numerically is lower at post. I don't know if it's statistically significantly different. It's not really relevant for the paired sample t-test whether it is or it isn't. Then we have the standard error of the means here for each pre and post. Now we have the correlation between pre and post. And as I've mentioned before in the chapter, the power of the paired sample t-test is related to the correlation across the conditions. And as this correlation gets bigger, the power of the paired sample t-test in comparison to the independent sample t-test increases. In this case, the correlation is pretty small, 0.13. I'd expect a bigger correlation, but this is what they got in this study, and so I'm going with it. It's a small correlation. It's there. It's positive. That's what it is. Then we get the actual core of the analysis in the paired differences table, and we can see that the mean difference was equal to negative 0.65994. So that's the difference between this mean and that mean, and the standard deviation of the difference scores. So the average difference across all 45 cases from pre to post, the standard deviation is 1.06. And the standard error of the mean difference scores is equal to 0.158. Another way to think about it is that the difference between these two means has a standard error of the mean difference equal to 0.158. If we go right to the end of the table, the difference between the means, so this difference here, negative 0.659, is statistically significant. P equal 0.00 something. It keeps going on, 0. In fact, I can improve that for you to get a higher level of decimal place. So it's 0.000139. In practice, we would just report this as p less than 0.001. We only report to 3 decimal places typically. So the null hypothesis has been rejected. These means may be considered statistically significant, p less than 0.001. And that's on the basis of a t-value of negative 4.174, and 44 degrees of freedom are associated with this analysis, which is total sample size minus 1. So lastly, I'm going to point out the 95% confidence intervals that are reported in the paired sample t-test case. So this mean difference of negative 0.6599, if I were to repeat this study many times over, I'd expect to see the mean difference between GPA pre-goal setting training versus GPA post-goal setting training to range between negative 0.97862 and negative 0.34127. So 95% of those mean differences across all those studies would be expected to range between these two values. And because both these values are negative, it implies that there's a statistically significant difference between the mean difference and 0. So because these two values do not intersect with 0, we can conclude that there's a statistically significant effect, p less than 0.05, because an alpha level of 0.05 corresponds to a 95% confidence interval. So that is how you can conduct a paired sample t-test in SPSS.